want to talk about The 100 because it's going into its season finale next week, but it's already renewed, which makes me very, very happy.
So I have a confession to make.
Well, it's not a confession to me, but yes.
I have not. Even though each week you are vocal about your support of the show, I have not caught up with it. I just...
There's a lot of TV.
There's so much TV.
I get it. I mean, look, we all have
You
those
love
shows. I love it. We all have those shows. I need to catch up on Banshee. Fowler and Steppenwall and a bunch of people I trust in this regard are like, watch Banshee. We all have those shows. It's like, we need to do it. But ask me why I love The 100.
Why do you love The 100?
And I will say spoiler free. And I've been wanting to do this for a while just because it's like, have a chance to be like, hey.
I'm like your puppet right now.
Speak, dance, ask me why I like The 100. It's awesome. It's a show, and it's funny. You always have that caveat. I know it's like, okay, the first few were kind of rough. It's often true. That's just how TV works.
I liked the pilot, actually.
And I did too. That's the funny. There are people who are like, oh, the pilot sucks. I thought pilots are tough, guys. Pilots are very tough. So considering this was kind of a big reach show, I think the pilot did its job as far as like, here's what's going on. Yes, the pilot has a lot of the overt things that were going to make our audience, IGN audience especially, very cynical about this show, which is it's very attractive young people in this sci-fi setting, and are they too clean? Are they too attractive? Is it like it's the trappings of sci-fi, but it's not real sci-fi? Were a lot of the early complaints, right? But I think that I think that was a disservice to sort of some of the story elements, and B, a few episodes in, and you start to really see like, oh, they're going to some interesting places here.
There's a lot of sci-fi with very attractive, clean people.
Right. I mean, there is that funny thing. Are you like, oh, so is the Battlestar cast just hideous? Were they just
Caprica 6.
Oh, she was gross.
Oh, gross.
I could hardly look at the screen when she was taking her clothes off.
And all of the other Cylons.
Right. Yeah. The Cylons were.
Well, I mean, if you're going to make yourself,
I guess, and duplicate.
You would choose an attractive model.
Yeah. But, so I understood it to an extent. And then, the first season, there is a few things that have like the CW trappings. And the thing that I complained about the most the first season was there was this love triangle that I just didn't buy into story-wise. Because I think people go to extremes with things, right? And so I always think it's funny when people are like, love story, whatever, as if every story you don't like has a love story element. Right. Almost every story,
Every story pretty much. I'm trying to think of any that don't.
Even there are some where it's like he lost someone he loved, so it's kind of in the past. I mean, and it's not, of course, yes, people find exceptions. There are some that don't, but I mean, even when it came down to it, I've talked about, if you want to say about love triangles, I mean, you could say Star Wars has a love triangle. I know how it turns out, but I'm just saying Star Wars has a love triangle.
It has a very disturbing one, as a matter of fact.
That's where it goes. Yeah, that's the story George wanted to tell.
Yeah.
The Dark Knight has a love triangle. Dark Knight has a love triangle not from the comics, where suddenly, at its core, the Dark Knight has a love triangle with Batman and Two-Face and a girl they invented. And I'm saying that to be silly because it's a freaking awesome movie, but I'm saying if you wanted to be like, oh, they threw in a love triangle,
right?
Which is all funny for me to say the love triangle did not work in The 100, but the show got better and better, and by the end of the first season, I thought really it kind of found itself. And season 2, guys, I'm just saying, it's freaking kick-ass, and it's become one of my absolute favorite shows on TV right now. Like it's like the one I have to watch. We were talking beforehand about shows you kind of leave on your DVR.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, so pretending that. What is the show that becomes the sacrificial lamb to make room for?
I don't know. I mean, that's the question.
Tell people to kill.
I don't want to make that decision for you.
You have to make that decision.
No, I can't.
Yes,
I can't.
You do.
Last Man Standing.
Okay.
All you hardcore Last Man Standing fans have to put it to the side. No, I know it's been, and one thing I will say is this season's been very gratifying to actually look at the comments on IGN and see it go from the like, pretty people, whatever, and then people are like, this show's awesome. And
I'm just so fascinated that that's because it's not as if, again, like Arrow doesn't have attractive.
I know. I think, but
incredibly
Arrow had to, Arrow were based on a comic book, so we're going to instantly sort of grab people, and this was based on a book that hadn't come out yet. And it just had to overcome more obstacles. And CW, I mean, it goes back years, but CW, because of what they once were, there's this cynicism and this defensiveness about it. Even though if you look at that network now and the shows they put on, and I'm not saying they all work or whatever, but the kind of shows they're putting on there's so much genre. It's like they're
very genre heavy.
Genre heavy.
I will say though, as a fan of sci-fi, I do like, one of the things that I really liked about Fringe was, yes, the main actors, like Anna Torv is gorgeous, right?
Yeah.
Like, so they're very attractive people, but they didn't dress her up.
Right.
She looked very dressed down. She couldn't help but be gorgeous, but she was very much like dressed down to look like a real FBI agent, and it peppered the world with people that looked real.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because now if you look at some of the actors on the 100 from what they began with,
when Bolivia was introduced, people were like,
right. But if you look at a lot of the actors on the 100 from when the show began to now, they have changed them drastically, and some of it's the dirt and blood factor, and the fact that the show gets super violent. And I will even say I like that when people get hurt on the show, it takes a few episodes for them to heal, because Arrow's actually way guilty of this. I remember the season premiere, Felicity got so hurt, like blood is all over her, and then like the next scene, she's like pristine.
Anyway.
The 100 people's wounds stick around, the blood and mud stick around, and a lot of the characters have gone through major transformations as far as who they are and who they're aligning with and what that means for how they look. And they look drastically different in really cool ways that make it kind of fascinating. Kind of like we talked about with Walking Dead, to like look at like a season 1 photo to like where a lot of them go,
then they just cleaned Rick up again.
Right.
Yeah.
But he
was looking like a mountain man.
Yeah.
And appropriately.
Exactly. And so that's been a kind of, it almost makes it kind of great that they had the like, we're fresh-faced, young, beautiful people, because you see like where they took them and kind of took the characters. So.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that always adds texture.
Yeah.
I mean, in the case of The Walking Dead, you're like, the worst thing about this apocalypse, like no showers. People must stink. So you look at them and you're like, you gotta stink.
Yeah. That's gonna be a whole episode where they finally deal with that issue.
Deal with the stink?
Yeah. So I purposely left.
You should deal with the stink in a big way, though.
Oh, yeah.
Like the global stink. But we'll talk, the dead body stink.
That's a 3-episode arc,
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I kept spoilers out of this just to say, the 100, it's just ending its second season. Please, I think a lot of you, if you haven't been watching, check it out. Season 1 is on Netflix. Season 2 will eventually be on Netflix, but you can buy it on Amazon and iTunes. And that's my pitch.
That's your pitch.
That's my pitch, and I'm sticking to it.
I'm sold. I still don't know what I'm supposed to sacrifice, though, because you won't answer.
You'll have to flip a coin, figure it out.